Chapter 1. It was a crisp autumn afternoon. As the speaker made his closing remarks, the audience sat in rapt attention. Deep in concentration, like fishermen, they laid their nets. Intent on snaring every scrap of insight and perception for future use, they would capture his wisdom on paper, hoarding it like a treasure till they themselves could put it to use. Mesmerized, they had been listening for several hours, and, except for the speaker's voice, you could have heard a pin drop. They had assembled here, coming from all parts of the country to attend this lecture. Male and female, young and old, feeble and strong, in search of a clue, a secret, the key that would turn their lives around. Now it was coming to a close. The speaker paused for a moment, sipping from the half-filled glass of water in the lectern. While replacing the glass, he seemed to look directly into my eyes as he said, "Thank you, my friends. Thank you for coming." The enthusiastic crowd broke into loud, spontaneous applause, but quieted once again as the speaker raised his hand. Today is both an ending and a beginning. It can be the end of your struggles and suffering, and it can also be the beginning of a beautiful, bountiful life of joy, peace, and plenty. However, you must take action. Take these ideas and use them. Put them to work for you. Practice the 3 secrets I've shared with you. Find your center of balance, and you'll find that your valley of tears and tribulation will lead to new heights of success, happiness, and fulfillment. He replaced the microphone as he smiled and left the podium. The applause became deafening as the moderator announced, "John will be happy to autograph his books, and, although it's late, he has promised to stay until the last book is signed. He'll be at the blue table at the back of the hall." It had been a hectic day, and I was somewhat tired. I had traveled a good distance and nearly spent my last dollar to attend this lecture, and now it was over. The speaker's message had left me with newfound feelings of hope and excitement. I wanted so badly to tell him how grateful I was to be there. I wanted to thank him personally for the precious gifts of wisdom he'd shared with us. But glancing at the long lines already forming around the table, I felt I'd be fortunate just to get his autograph on the 2 books. Resigned to wait, I joined the line, sternly determined to find a way to spend at least 2 or 3 minutes with him. I've heard it said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Suddenly it occurred to me that if I'm last in line, he might speak to me for a few extra minutes and perhaps tell me a little more about the 3 principles he'd presented. Quietly I abandoned my place in line and, as the crowd thinned away, assumed my new position at the very end. The heavens must have smiled on me because the line began moving at a faster pace. My friends call me Bill. In my late 30s, I now live in a small town in the Midwest. About a month ago, I received a flyer by mail describing a lecture to be held in New City. The lecturer, widely recognized as a man of great knowledge and insight, spoke mainly from first-hand experience, and had actually survived some of life's most grueling tests. Although, in my current situation, money and time were scarce, I decided then and there to hear what he had to say. Tom, a neighbor of mine, had recently gone to one of his seminars. Since then, he couldn't stop talking about the impact this event had on his life. Not only did Tom talk about it, but I also noticed major changes in his life. Tom had been under such tremendous stress that I thought one day they'd haul him off to the Massachusetts farm for the mentally bewildered. But now there seemed to be magic in his life. He was much calmer and happier than I had ever known him to be. He strongly suggested that I make whatever sacrifices were necessary to attend this important lecture. He spoke of the 3 secrets and how they could change lives. But when I pressed him for information about these secrets, Tom would only smile and say, "They're simple, but not easy to explain, Billy boy. You must go and find out for yourself." So it was, with a wife and 2 young children at home, very little money in my account, and major stress from a job that seemed destined for oblivion, I made up my mind to attend this life-changing lecture. Now, here I stood at my appointed post at the end of the line, waiting to hear a personal word or two from this extraordinary, unorthodox personality. The lecture was all and much more than Tom said it would be, and I now knew that my life would never be the same. The line moved on until I was the last of 3 remaining people. His down-to-earth manner and the sincerity of his message had created a strange bond with his audience, and yet there was a feeling of excitement and apprehension as my turn approached. Was it my imagination, or was that a faint glow around his head as he looked up at me and smiled? "Hello, sir," I said rather timidly. "My name is Bill, and I just want to thank you for sharing such valuable, practical information with us this evening." "Sit down, Bill, and please call me John," he said. "It seems you're the last one in line, so I guess I can take my time now. How's your wife and the 2 children?" I was dumbfounded. "How do you know about my family? We've never met. You couldn't have known that." "Couldn't I, Bill? We all know a lot more than we think. We just don't remember everything we know." Not quite knowing how to reply, I handed him my books and sat as he wrote these words, signing his name underneath. For Bill, with the respect one student of life owes another. I thanked him, but his strange remarks had piqued my curiosity, and I impulsively blurted out, "At times it seemed as if you were looking directly at me during the lecture, sir. I almost got the feeling you had something special to say to me. That's why I stayed at the end of the line, hoping to have a few more minutes with you." "Enough of this sir thing. Just call me John." "You probably couldn't pronounce my name anyway," he said. "I'm just an ordinary guy like you who had the same hopes and fears you have. Met someone many years ago, just like you're meeting me today. What he taught me changed my life and, hopefully, the lives of millions of others. And yes, I was looking directly at you. Figured you wanted to speak with me." I knew that he must have been tired, and I didn't want to take up too much of his time. Yet I felt I could sit there and listen to him for hours. I wanted to know what his life was like before, but I didn't want to seem prying or rude. I was just grateful that I was able to attend his lecture and now to speak with him for these few minutes. Sometimes magic has a way of occurring without any help from us. John looked at me, winked as if he knew what I was thinking, and said, "You know, there's a coffee shop downstairs. It'd be open for another hour or so. Would you like to join me for a cup of coffee?" I could hardly believe it. "I'd love to," I stammered, "but I don't want to take up too much of your time." "My pleasure," he said as he got up. We walked down to the coffee shop and found a table at the far corner. A few minutes later, as we took our first sips, he leaned back in his chair, looked me square in the eye, and asked, "Now, Bill, what is it you really want to know?" "The secrets you told us today, sir." "Oops, John. They were so awfully simple, yet so profound. Can anything that simple really work?" "Yes, of course they always work, but only if you work them. Some people think they could read books, go to seminars and lectures, meet every teacher imaginable, then just sit back and their lives would magically become glorious. It doesn't work that way. You must take action. This is very, very important. You have to use the information you get. You have to put that information to work. Do something with what you have. Yes, they always work if you work them. I've never found a case where they haven't. If I ever do, it'll be statistically significant." "You think they'd really work for me?" "After all, there's nothing special about me. I'm just trying to make my life work a bit better. There's just too much stress at home and on the job. I get anxious and scared sometimes. Well, most times." He smiled as he replied, "Does the law of gravity work for you, Bill? Does the light switch work for you even though you think you aren't very special? Of course they do. Universal laws always work, and they work for everyone. Doesn't matter whether you're good or bad, rich or poor, gifted or normal, special or not special. They'll work for everyone. That's why they're called universal laws. He seemed so confident about what he was saying. There was an unhurriedness about him, a serenity and calmness that became contagious. I suddenly felt at peace sitting there listening to him comment about life and living. Somehow I couldn't help feeling slightly guilty consuming all his time and attention. "Tell me, John," I said, "tell me, were you always like this, always in control, always calm and confident? Weren't you ever like, well, the rest of us, fearful, stressed out, anxious, confused?" "Of course I wasn't always like this," he said. "I went through the fire like most people, but as I said before, I met this old wise teacher, Nathaniel Carlyle Rishian by name, and what he explained to me changed my entire life. Would you like to hear the story?" "Sure," I replied, jumping at the chance. "I'd love to." With that, he reached under the table for his attaché case, opened it, and pulled out a folder bulging with papers. While taking one last sip of coffee, he handed the entire file to me. Rising from his seat, he tossed this commentary in my lap as he departed. "It's all there. Read it, and you'll see how I traveled the road of change to arrive where I am today. It will tell you more about the three principles and, more important, show you how to use them. I'll be publishing it in book form soon. This is a rough draft copy of my next manuscript. I've really got to go now, Bill, but it's been a real pleasure meeting you." He paid for the coffee, said goodbye as I thanked him, and with an enigmatic smile left me sitting alone at the table. As he walked out of the coffee shop, I waved to him and then glanced at the neat typewritten sheets in my hand. Then he was gone. Still somewhat bewildered, I took a cab back to my hotel, proceeded to my room, and began reading. The following chapters are as they were written in the original manuscript. I've done very little editing except to clarify some points. If you use the ideas he gave, they'll have as positive an effect on your life as they've had on mine. Now, starting in Chapter 2, we have Rishian as he told his story in those sheafs of paper he gave to me.